Hi, hopefully this video will help answer some questions about using the YoTeach app to facilitate online engagement for students in sort of really interactive and creative discussion boards. So let's get started. YoTeach is facilitated through a room. It is not Google integrated. So you'll just be creating these rooms separately on this app and then sharing that to your classroom. And I'll show you what that looks like in a second. So you're going to title your room something representative of what you're doing. So science lab discussion. And it's for frogs, frog dissection. So I'm going to always enable the admin features, and you're going to create a password that's something very easy for you to remember, but hopefully students won't guess it because then they can take over your discussion forum. So mine is just BPHS, and you make little questions to help you remember. I'm going to password protect the room so that it's just a little bit more secure for my students. This is the password they'll enter to get into your discussion forum. So you have to make that something pretty accessible for them to answer as well. So you'll enter that password that you just created. And so now you're in the student view of what they'll have when they log in. This is the link to your discussion. And for me, I'll just take that link and I'll copy and paste it onto a material post. And you add the link. And so it's not Google integrated, but very easily shared on Classroom in this way. And so pretty accessible for them. All right, so that's the student view, but I need the admin view. So I'm going to go here and add the admin password that I set up when I was doing my room. So something that I've already done is establish my profile. The first time you log in with YoTeach, they'll also be asking you for like a nickname or your name. Make sure you put like the name that your students address you as. So now I'm in like the teacher mode of the discussion forum. So the first thing I always do is I will enable the profanity filter. So these are the settings that I choose so that I can have full control over what is discussed and what is seen by students. So first thing I do is take off the profanity option. Then I open moderation settings and I'm going to moderate. So if you want to make sure that nothing is posted to the discussion until it runs by you first, then you'll turn on moderation and you'll pick a password that you can remember, and we'll share. You'll not share it with students, obviously. So I moderated it. Now no students will see posts until they go through me and I approve them. And that's all I can really do for right now with the admin features. If you are interested, another feature that I would enable now would be voice activation or voice, I don't know, reading. And it'll sort of interact verbally with the posts that are created as they go. So a little cumbersome, but it might be helpful for students who need like auditory support. So you and students can post to the board. If it's moderated, they won't be seen by students until you approve them. But if it's not, then it would be just students are able to post to the discussion board. So here are the different types of posts. You could just do a plain text. So if you are doing a lab, maybe you do a discussion question, a sort of response question, an essential question here. You can do any sort of plain text post. And if you were to like link maybe a resource, or if you were to link like an article, then that would become live for your students. So say I linked this frog article. So we did a lab on what do frogs look like, and then I'm going back and having students discuss or talk about like their findings. And so I would maybe want them also to be reading this article before they start their discussion. So this little paper airplane always sends things out, and now it's visible. So because I'm the moderator, it's automatically approved. But if it wasn't me posting it, it would be not approved, and you would have to tap on this red not approved logo in order to make it visible for students. The other types of posts you can create are space boards or collaborative space boards. So you give it a title. So say I want students to be working on something together. I can write on this collaborative space and students can. It's as if I'm sending them a whiteboard, or we're all standing in front of a whiteboard together and drawing or writing together. And so here's a couple different features I can doodle. So maybe you want them to draw something. Maybe they need to draw, like do some sort of graph for you. They have to do a parabola. I'm not sure. You can have them add images. So say they did their own experiment at home, and you want them to sort of add their results of whatever experiment it is. They can add text, and that text will show up like this. And so all students and you can collaborate on this board, and it like updates in real time. This you can't necessarily moderate as well as like a plain text. So that's now posted on the board, and students can launch it themselves, and they can collaborate and add on to that space board. So that's one of the neatest features for students. You can post just a drawing or an image. And so say you just want to post some little image for them to see, like you want them to see a certain shape, or you want them to see something you can create. You can post just a picture and maybe write on that picture. So let's take it off of frogs for a second. And if you were doing like a US history lesson and they were discussing something concerning like a map, you can draw on the map, right? And then send that to them, and then they can respond to however you edited that image or that map or that diagram, the statistic, whatever it is that you wanted them to work with. The other really cool neat feature of this discussion app is that you can create mathematical equations. So you can, and this is where I would like flip my Chromebook, if you have like the district Chromebook that turns into a tablet, and you can just write on this space. So say you have like a really intricate, and I'm sorry, I'm not like math person, like equation, and you want to be able to show students like an equation. You could write it out, and then it just like creates a really nicely done thing for you, and so you can send that out and students can interact with maybe that equation. And then the last thing we can do, types of posts, are polls. So you ask like a question. Oh my gosh. And you have options. So I'll say yes. And then I'll add a poll option and say no. And students will do a little thumbs up next to what they are polling. And so those are the different types of posts that you can add to the forum. And so now students can interact with these posts with all of these different options down at the bottom. So let's look at this one. The first thing I want to show you is a student can raise their hand in essence by clicking this little icon, and it highlights the post blue and it draws your attention to the post so that you can address whatever question they might have. And I would encourage them to write their question as a response. I'll show you how you respond to a post in a second. You as a teacher, as a moderator, or with admin login, you can pin something to the top with the little push pin icon. And so whatever you pin will stay at the very top. So new posts or posts that are responding to previous posts will like go to the top of the feed unless you pin something. So if I was, doing the initial post with maybe a discussion question, with like an article they were reading or a video that they had to watch before they were responding to each other, then I would make sure I pinned that to the top. You can add a star and it'll highlight it in yellow, so it kind of just draws students' attention to that person's response or a really good question that was asked or something that was done really well. You just want students to look at that. The other thing that's just so great is that you can mute someone. So say like a student is just being incessant or I don't know, doing things that you're not agreeing with, you can mute them and then have a private conversation about that later. And if they're very bad responses, you can delete them. The posts are attributed, meaning they have their names on them. And you are, if you're choosing to moderate, approving them or not. But that's just another option to mute them if they don't, or trash it if they don't follow your rules. So those are the sort of things that you can do with posts. And then students will, and you will, reply to posts. So when you click this respond or reply little, oops, I'm muted, little reply button, another new message sort of comes up here and it says you are replying to this. And it says, wow, this is an amazing article. I probably, if I was having students do like a very involved discussion forum, would provide sentence starters or sentence frames for them to respond to each other. But that's just kind of a thing I do. In your response, you can draw something or add an image. So if I was like a physics teacher, I could draw something as an example. So say a student's post was a question for the teacher and he, did the little raising hand. And then I can type a response and maybe add a spaceboard to draw something, and they can, or I could add another problem that's similar with a response and they can finish it on the spaceboard. I could draw something as an explanation. I can add an image, so maybe another map or another real life example. I could add another type of problem. I could ask them a question with a poll. So you can do all the different types of posts in a response again. So that's a pretty cool feature. So after we have all these different types of posts and students have engaged with each other and learned from each other, I would have them reflect on their engagement and their learning. So there's a couple different things you can do with the admin tools to do that. The first thing is you could generate like a word cloud. And so that just takes the words, and this obviously wasn't a very involved example or discussion board, but it should be a lot better. But it takes like keywords and it, highlights what happened in the forum, and you can have students just in kind of a creative, maybe journal reflection, say, what did students bring up the most? What was, why are these the keywords that are highlighted or that were repeated the most? maybe something like that. You can have students respond to a transcript. So you can, in essence, like save the conversation and maybe add it as a document and then have students reflect on it in a classroom assignment, or you even just save it if you wanted to have an example for the future. And then you can get statistics. So here are all the questions that were asked. So you can look for yourself mostly, like, are students asking questions or are they answering questions? And then there was 1 star, there was 1 good question. The statistics will be more in-depth or involved with a real conversation. And so that is YoTeach. Please let me know how I can answer your questions about this app. My email is jbentley, BENTLEY, @fguhsd.org. Thanks. Bye.